Okay, guys, welcome to another edition of the Incredible Hulk podcast. And this time we're looking at the season 2 story called Married. Of course, starred Bill Bixby, Lou Ferrigno, Jack Colvin, and a guest appearance by Mariette Hartley, who actually won an Emmy for her role in this story as well. And I'm joined by, I've got two Brians actually tonight, interestingly. I've got one who's joining me now, and I've got Brian Cutler, the actor, later on, who appeared in the story Married as the character Brad. So it's the first time I've ever had two people with the same name. So it's the first. So I would like to welcome first my friend Brian. How are you, Brian?
Oh, pretty good. How about yourself, Frank?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Brian. Cheers, yeah. Now, this story, Married, was, I think, originally a two-part opening story. But over here, I don't know if that happened in America, but over here, at the time, they bunched the two episodes together and made it a feature-length film. And it actually showed in cinemas over here. And I actually went to see it as a kid. But they gave it a different title. They called it The Bride of the Incredible Hulk. I think it was kind of like a Frankenstein-type trope or something, on the billboards and that. So, yeah, but it was that story. So that's quite intriguing. Now, of course, the character we have in this, that's sort of, apart from Bill Bixby and the Hulk, is this character called Dr. Carolyn Fields, who's a research scientist, who's looking into this new hypnosis technique to kind of control or slow down various aggressive illnesses. And of course, it turns out that she's got one herself. So how do you think about this opening and this story initially, Brian?
Oh, this one was a tearjerker because I remember watching this one when I was a kid because, I had watched the series, growing up. And, this one stood out because, you're going into this and, it's not going to end well. And, for once you're finally getting to see David relax, take someone else into his life despite the risk. Now someone else knows his secret, which is something, you're like, oh my God, he's told somebody, he's David Banner. That's something he didn't do the whole first season, because, but, it was just a tearjerker and a half. I remember because, this lady's dying, David has the Hulk to deal with at the same time, and he's trying to find a cure for her. And then, once it winds down, to the end, it's like by then, you have a tear in your eye. It's just a very, very emotional story, very heart-wrenching.
It is very much so, Brian. Yeah, I think they both give great performances. I think Bill and Mariette bounce off each other beautifully, and improve each other's performances. I think because I think I remember reading or heard on the commentary of that by Kenneth Johnson, who wrote and directed this story as well, among many others. He mentioned that when they were trying to cast a co-star against Bixby, Bixby had quite high standards as to who he, kind of character he wanted to work with, and it turns out that she stepped up to the plate brilliantly and did a great job, and they became fast friends after that, both of them. Now, there was a one interesting bit there when I was saying before about how they do very interesting camera work in the Hulk. I always thought they did some interesting stuff. There's one particular shot where Banner is arriving at the center, the medical center where she works, and he captures her coming out, and so not begging, but almost, he's kind of asking her, "Can you help me with your? I've heard about the things you're doing. I really need your help. Could you do these things for me?" And they're following one another down. They're walking down his steps. They're going down, and the camera's tracking them all the way. It's the longest one shot. Goes on forever. Of pulling away behind. And there was a guy, I think it was Chuck Caldwell, was holding the camera and walking backwards, filming this thing. And at one point he nearly fell over and stuff. But it was a really nice shot. It was just one shot, and they just followed them all the way around. And then there was one cut, when they changed it around. But I've always thought there was interesting stuff like that. They always tried to experiment with new camera work, and maybe it
It,
could
mu-
have been Panavision. I don't know, early Panavision. I'm not sure. But
it must have been incredibly difficult because TV cameras back then were just huge.
they were really heavy. Yeah, yeah.
They were bulky, heavy, unwieldy, and I can't even picture this guy doing that. Trying to up with one of them things on your shoulder. Oh goodness,
and going backwards as well, which is not, it's
downstairs at one point.
Yeah. So that was really great, and so it's, as I say, it's meant to be in Hawaii. So they've got all they've got the palm trees around and stuff like that, and but what happens is he tries to get through to her, and she says, no, I really can't help you. So that appears to be the end of it. She drives off, but he follows her to her house. It's like a beachfront house, and I do believe it's actually Bill Bixby's real house. It was at the time. I believe it was his house where they shot the exterior stuff, and now you see, Brian. You know what happens next, don't you? She's doing the testing on herself with the electro things on. And there was one point where her eyes went up like that, and we thought, "Oh, are we going to get a She-Hulk?" There's just a little nod to like the white eyes.
Yeah, she was having a grand mal seizure as a result of her condition, and then he had to bust in and try to alleviate and make sure she didn't hurt herself or anything like that when that was going on. And oh, heck, it's just weird when you watch them bust in glass and stuff.
Yes.
In your mind, it's breakaway glass now, but when you're a kid, it's like, oh, you're going to cut yourself. Are you nuts?
And he did a little, didn't he, on his arm? He did a little bit. Yeah. He thought, oh, we're going to get a Hulk out here. No, we didn't. It was a false call. But anyway, he does kind of bring her around. I think he's used some smelling salts or something that he conveniently finds, and so they become kind of like, well, friends is one word, but it becomes more stronger than that as we go on. But they talk about stuff. I think she tries to help him, agrees to help him, and puts him under like hypnotic. Would you call it regression? Would that be the right word, Brian? Do you think hypnotic regression?
Yeah, you could call it that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's the first time that we see. I think up to that point, it was the first time we ever saw the Hulk and Banner in the same scene together. And they were trying to find a way, how can we get them both together? And then they thought, all right, put him under hypnosis, and then you can kind of dream up this, this image of him, trying to control the creature.
It's kind of like the feel of what would happen if you stuck Jekyll and Hyde in a room together, or
yeah.
But it's something you never thought you'd ever see, and it was very interesting to see. Lou Ferrigno, of course, is the Hulk. With Bill Bixby, facing each other off, actually on camera on one scene together.
Yeah.
That was one thing that really stuck out that I remembered this from a kid was those scenes, out there in the middle of, I think it was the California, I can't remember the name, but it was the California Sands Park or something like that where they actually filmed it. And, it's, I just remembered that very vividly when I grew up, those scenes where they're out there in the desert, or what thinks the desert facing off each other, because it's like, okay, here he is, he's trying to control this creature that's dominated, taking over his life basically, and it seems like at every turn the Hulk's like, he's too powerful, he's breaking out, especially when he blasts open that safe, you're sort of, he's not getting out of that, bam, right out the
That didn't work. But yeah, I like that. Yeah, there was all these different intriguing things that you had, like like a big rope that would drop down, like a big net thing that would drop on him, and he still busted out of that. And you put him in a cage, and you put gas things in it or something, and he got out of that. And but they made some kind of progress as they went along. I think she was saying, "I think you're doing okay." It took him longer this time. It took him longer to break out. We're making real progress, and he wasn't sure. He didn't really buy it, did he? And of course it comes to a point where we get our first Hulk out, because under this hypnosis, he starts thinking back to his first wife and how he couldn't get her out of the car and everything, in the pilot story. And it builds to a crescendo, and he changes. I couldn't get her out in the front room, and it's just the first time she sees this phenomena, of him as the creature, and then he wrecks the place as usual. But eventually comes back, and that's when I think he reveals who he is. He says, he actually does open up to her and says, "I'm David Banner," but he died in a fire. No, he didn't,
Well, he told her that towards the beginning.
He told her before the Hulk out.
Yeah, it was before the Hulk out, because she had looked at and talked about David Banner's work that he was originally doing in the different diseases and all that, and then she said, "Were you his assistant?" And then basically it leads right there into him letting it go that no, I'm David Banner.
Yeah.
So that was very interesting.
He mentions, "Have you read Robert Louis Stevenson?" She says, "Treasure Island." He goes, "No, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde." Yeah. Yeah.
Another weird thing was this is one of those episodes where you barely saw Jack McGee also.
Yeah.
That's one thing that stuck out, because you saw him for like one scene and then boom, he's out of the story, which, isn't kind of normal, because after a while there, he's in so many different episodes, doing so many different things. It's like, and of course you hear that very familiar, Mr. McGee music start playing, he's coming. And then
you always know when he's around.
How little he had to do with this one. He was like one scene and he's gone.
Yeah.
So,
but there was that lovely little scene which has become famous now, kind of, or infamous, if you like, when he goes to the door. I get it, says Banner, and there's that tense moment thing. Oh no, oh no, they're gonna meet. Opens the door just before he turns around, he slams it back in his face. I thought, and there's an outtake somewhere of that in one of these Easter egg things, and they showed that scene, and he slams the door, and then there's a second, he opens it back up and goes, "End of series." They've met, Oh, it was a lovely little moment, that, So that was really good how they did that. They used to always have these very clever misfires that just miss one another. Turn a corner, he's coming out the other way or whatever. We as we go along, we find out that Carolyn's condition is terminal. Things get quite dark at that point. There is a scene where the Hulk changes again, Banner changes, and she manages to get a tissue sample of the Hulk. And later they're looking through the telescopes and so on, like that, the medical thing, microscope, sorry, and she thinks there's a way of maybe, with his regenerative powers and so on, that it may help to combat her condition. So we sort of start going into that kind of scenario. So how do you feel about that, Brian? There suddenly seems to be a little bit of hope there.
I know, that's what made it even more crushing.
Yeah.
It's like, we've got the sample ready. All we need is a nice sterile environment, like a hospital or something like that. And then boom, we've probably got a treatment, no problem, and all that. And then it's like you're sitting there back here, you go, okay, something's going to go wrong. Something's going to go wrong. And it's like hurricane. And it's like, did you notice there was a hurricane? Because when you're a kid, you're sitting there going, get out of there. There's a hurricane.
Yeah, we see it. Yeah. So that kind of that held things up dramatically, because they obviously their phone lines went down, everything went down, the power. I'm skipping some bits here, obviously, because we haven't got as much time tonight. But the little boy in there, the little boy that keeps popping up, I was kind of concerned for him after. I thought, where's his parents? He's just out on his own all the time on the beach, and there's no guardians or anyone around. I thought, what the hell's going on there?
It's like, why is he out in the water by himself? My parents would never let that happen. Are you kidding me?
And at one point, he nearly drowns. you know.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Carolyn that was there, you know, he would have, you know, there was no one else around to help him. So of course, again, you know, she runs out. He's always concerned if she goes missing, as you know. And there's one particular bit. Obviously, I'm jumping so far ahead here, but at the end of the first episode, she gets her results, you know, her pathological results back. I think that's the right word, and they're not good. And she has, I think, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to live, which is really, obviously, really, really numbing and sad. And she thinks, well, to hell with it. I'm going to live life for, you know. She goes speeding off in a car, smoke everywhere, ends up at this kind of little Hawaiian bar. And the guest that we're going to have later on appears. We're going to be speaking to Brian Cutler on here, who played Brad. And he arrives and sort of slinks up next to her, you know, the old medallion on. And all. And he says, there's a funny line there. He says, "Hi, I'm Brad." And she goes, "Yes, you probably are." Or something like that. I thought that was really great. And but there's this music playing, and apparently they released this record. They did a disco version of the Incredible Hulk theme. And it came out. She came out. So you hear this, you know, the kind of boogie version of it playing on there, which pops up in a couple of other stories as well later on. So I thought, oh my God, that's like, talk about cheese, but never mind, you know. But of course, you know, Banner's, you know, frantically looking for her, and ends up at Brad's like sort of like swanky pad, you know, his bachelor pad, I suppose, with his friend. And do you want to pick up on this, Brian? You know what happens here, don't you?
Oh yeah, it's like, you know, he sees, you know, Carolyn up there starting to, you know, have some, you know, pain or issues, and of course these two guys, you know, the typical stupid idiots, try to keep him from going to save her, and they of course, you know, do a little damage to, you know, poor Bix, and then next thing you know, or, you know, Dr. Banner, and next thing you know, boom, you know, Hulk shows up, tears that whole place apart, even yanks out the one floor. And then, of course, you die laughing as he yanks the one guy's hair off. It turns out to be a wig. Oh,
it's like Mr. Vane has been caught out. Yeah, the wig's come off, you know. And he just shoves him, you know, out of the way. But so the whole place is completely trashed, you know.
Yeah.
And the top balcony's like collapsing down and stuff like that. And there's a funny moment where I speak to Brian about this later on. I won't go into it, but too much. But you know, the actual upper level bit wouldn't collapse the way they wanted it to. And it took forever to collapse, and they had to keep putting new film cans in to film it. It just wouldn't go down. They pulled on it, they dropped things on it, they hung on it, and it just kept. It went on and on and on, and this thing would not go down, you know. So that must have been hilarious, to watch. But you know, so that's one of those sort of outtake things as well. So what other parts do stick out for you, Brian? What other parts and the performances do you like in it?
Well, you referred to the boy, and like I said, the scene that really got me, of course, was when you get all the way to the very end. And, you know, the boy is asking about what happened to, you know, Dr. Fields. And, you know, there's David, of course, sitting there distraught, you know, tears in his eyes and all that. And he has to explain, you know, this boy that he died, you know, she died.
Yeah.
And then, but like I said, they give you that little bit of hope, because then the kid looks up and goes, you know what, when I grow up, I'm going to be a doctor and I'm going to cure whatever killed her. And that kind of gives you a little hope for the future and all that, you know, that scene right there at the end, you know, that despite all this, that, you know, something good did come out of it, because if she hadn't have been there, that boy would have died. So a little hope for the future, you know, but of course, David's future is, you know, back on the highway, so to speak.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think there was a line that the boy says, if I got it here, in that scene you're speaking of, where the boy says, nobody really dies as long as people remember them. I mean, that's a really sweet, but it's a very true thing.
Yeah.
It's very true. If you hold them in your heart and your memory, they never die, really. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, very touching, Brian. That was, yeah.
Yeah, so it's an old Indian proverb because I said the same thing at a friend of mine's funeral. As long as the person's remembered in our thoughts, felt in our hearts, and their name is spoken, that they never truly die. And I can't remember which tribe had come up with that. It was an old Native American saying,
Oh,
and I just it was very fitting because it is very true that what you leave behind is what defines your legacy. What did you do during life's what I mean. And this lady obviously had a very big impact on this little young boy in the short time that they knew each other, and that the fact that she's died on they want to drive him to become a doctor.
yeah,
Well, we don't know, because it's just it is just a character on the television, but it's just how we influence people can influence the future.
absolutely, yeah, yeah. And of course, it had a big impact on Banner because they got so close, intellectual minds, and fell in love and got married in it. I mean, obviously, very short lived because well, he kind of knew anyway. He knew what he was kind of letting himself in for. Maybe not as soon as he thought, but she had told him, laid the cards on the table that she had a terminal illness, and he went ahead with it. So, of course, it had a huge impact on him as well. Um, and that tragedy struck twice with him. His first marriage in the pilot, she died. He couldn't help her. The same thing happened this time around. He couldn't really help her either. Or when he turned into the Hulk is helpless. He hasn't got the intellect. So what can he do but break down, run, just hold her? It's that powerlessness. Even though he's this big, powerful creature, he was helpless at the end of it. He couldn't actually save her life.
Yeah, it reminds me very much of the one line from Superman. Of course I'm talking to about Christopher Reeve. All these things I can do, all these powers, and I couldn't save him. And it's the same case right here. I'm so big, I'm so strong, I've got this huge, powerful body, but there's not a thing I can do to help this woman.
Mm.
You see, I always thought Lou Ferrigno got the short end of the stick when it came to these things because, while Bill Bixby had a voice and all that, to tell his lines and did them very, very well and all that. Plus, great actor. Bill was amazing. Lou Ferrigno had to do it with just his face, his emotions, and the way he portrayed that creature.
Yeah.
He couldn't do it through words. He had to do it through gestures, looks, and all that. So he kind of had the lion's share there when he was the creature of trying to emote, because he can't speak.
Yes.
So it was a little bit more difficult. I mean, I always thought Lou Ferrigno, as far as I'm concerned, just great as Bix was. It's because he had to do that same thing, but he couldn't say lines. He couldn't speak. He had to do it through his face, and he always did it incredibly.
He did. He's great. He really was great. I think from the first pilot to all the way through it, he, as I say, he was limited with speech, obviously, that he couldn't talk. I mean, he just growl or scream or whatever, or roar. But in the more softer kind of moments, it was all in his expressions, as you said, and I think he had a great emotional range. Really, I think he'd done a bloody good job, really, considering that it wasn't initially an actor at all, and that developed later. But I expect he got a lot of his his training really on that show, of learning acting. And Bill being a great mentor, as Lewis said many times in interviews, he was like his older mentor. He was his teacher.
Yeah, there was a documentary they put out. It was about an hour or so long. I wish I could remember the name of it right now. I'd watched it a while back, and it was just a very well done thing on the inside, to the TV series. But it focused on Bill Bixby, of course, and it's just when you see the outtakes, the gag reels, and all that things you didn't see on the television, didn't make it to the television. He was just such a warm guy, incredible sense of humor. The kind of stuff he'd say would just bowl you over. Especially when he blew a take. It was,
yeah.
And it's kind of sad. He's no longer with us. But.
It is sad. It is sad. That I remember when that happened. When I heard about that at the time, and how saddened I was because his character, was a big part of my childhood.
Yeah.
the Hulk was there. I mean, it was called the Incredible Hulk. We get the Hulk, but we get more Banner than the Hulk in each episode. He was really like a hero as well. Banner, I thought, because he had to set up the things that happened. He had to get involved in people's lives and try and help them. He was the intellectual side of things, and you had the Hulk, who was the childlike monster side of things that just helped out when necessary. So yeah, I do miss him very much. I thought he was amazing in that. He really was. And of course Marriott too. I mean, getting an Emmy for that was a great thing.
Yeah. Because I remember Mariette Hartley, she was all over the place on television back in those days. That's why, when I saw her pop up on this, I'm like, oh, I know who that is. I recognize that lady.
Yeah. A lot of those actors, were very busy around the 70s and stuff, or the 60s. Many of them pop up in soaps or medical programs or that kind of stuff. They always had kind of regular work. Much like some of the actors over here, the same sort of faces pop up a lot. But yeah, it was very, very. It was a very sad ending because it didn't end all happy. You just got Bill sitting on the sand like that. Boy walks off, and it's just focuses on him when the credits go up, and that is quite a It's very poignant. Yeah.
Yeah, it was one of those few times. I wasn't actually walking down, the side of the road at the end. This time he's, on the beach and all that, and then of course you hear that music playing, and see, that was the weird thing about the Incredible Hulk growing up. You always knew sooner or later that music, "The Lonely Man Walking," was going to start playing, and then of course you start to feel very, very sad because But in this case, it was a double header. Not only are you feeling bad for him, but at the same time, he's just lost somebody who was very close to him on top of that. And so he's just not only just lost everything again, but he's also lost this woman that he loved. And that was like really made it a real clincher, this one. And you see, I always said, if one of these days, if I was ever crazy enough to write my memoirs, one of the lines I'd have to throw in it is, somewhere in the backwaters of my mind, there's a middle-aged man who's still walking down the side of a highway carrying a knapsack with that music playing.
Yeah,
because it's such I can still sit here every day and remember a lot of the episodes of the Hulk without even rewatching them. It was just so memorable.
Wow. All those years later, yeah. It's amazing. Some things just stick in your memory so vividly, don't they?
Yeah, because when you mentioned you wanted to do Married, I remembered all those big key scenes. Like, of course, the nightmare scenes where he's running along he's having the nightmare, of course, where the bus shows up and there's death at the wheel.
Yeah.
When you're a kid, you remember that.
You would remember that. That's well scary. I mean, you can imagine how scary that would be for a child.
I think I went out the bus stop that following the following week, and it's like you look up, there comes the school bus. Is the Grim Reaper at the wheel? It's like, because also when he's running after her and she's driving away in the bus, and he's got still got all the lays and stuff on in that outfit. I still remember that scene incredibly vividly, even before I rewatched this past week, because it just, stuck out in my mind, that imagery. It was so powerful.
Yes, it was. And kind of surrealist kind of dreamlike thing going on as well. Yeah. It was quite eerie. But again, the Hulk do those sort of things quite really, really well, that stick in your mind, like these images, these strange images and stuff. That same with the back to the beginning of the series with the dream with Banner and his first wife, that kind of strange thing going on, and him, the fire and the car, and he can't lift the car up, and he has recurring nightmares about that as well, So yeah, but I think it was a great story, Brian. I think a great way to open up the season too.
A definite heartbreaker. Yeah.
And what a way to go! Yeah, have a real heart-wrenching story to start the season off. Let's just rip your hearts out when we start the kick off.
Let's start on an upbeat, shall we? Oh,
yeah. But there you go. Yeah, but Brian, it's been great to share this story with you. I do appreciate you coming
Oh,
on.
it's been great, great being here. I love this series, and like I said, I love watching it even now. So it's great to get y'all sit down and have a chance to talk about it.
That's great. I'm joined for this story by the next guest actor who was in it, who played Brad in the story. Yes, with the medallion, the medallion on the neck. Yeah, very 70s stuff going on. And it's actor Brian Cutler. Brian, welcome to the show. How are you?
Thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here.
It's great to have you here, Brian. Thank you. Now we're just going to go through a couple of things before we get to the Hulk, and then we can talk more about that.
Okay.
You have appeared in many well-known TV series in the 70s and 80s, like The Bionic Woman, and a series that I wanted to talk to you about called Isis. I think it might have been called The Adventures of Isis, but I think The Secrets of Isis. That's right. Which ran for a season, 22 episodes, from 75 to 76, and you had a recurring role in that all the way through, of a character called Rick Mason. Can you tell us a bit about Isis and what the sort of, for those who may not be aware of it, what the sort of crux of the story was?
It was the first female superhero that was not animated, that was on television. And we were all shocked that it wasn't continued because it had one of the highest ratings on TV. And then we merged, the second year we merged with Shazam, so it became the Shazam Isis Hour. And I just did a thing called Hollywood something, I don't know what it was, where we signed autographs and stuff. And then when the DVD series came out about 7-8 years ago, we were the guest speakers at Comic-Con in San Diego.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh, yeah, it was a lot of fun. My wife hated it because she doesn't like crowds. And there were like 400,000 people there. But
it's a huge event, that, yeah.
Got to see a lot of old friends and stuff. And Joanna Pang Atkins, who played Cindy Lee in the first season, flew in with her and then their son from New York. So we were lovers. Just had a great relationship, and so it was so good to see her after 40 years, and have that same feeling.
Yeah,
it was kind of fun. I don't know what people would know about Isis. It was, as I say, the first female superstar. Superhero, and we really enjoyed working it. It was a hard shoot because we did 2 episodes a week. We could work on Saturdays because we considered a location show. At a studio, you can't work Saturday and Sunday unless they pay you golden time. But they could work us 6 days a week, and they did. And we worked long days, 16, 18-hour days.
Long days, yeah.
Yeah, long days. But it was a ball. And what's so interesting is, Frank, that it affected so many people and still does. Interesting you should ask about it. I just got an email the other day from a woman, 21, who found it on the internet somewhere. Don't ask me where, I'm computer stupid. But she fell in love with the show and contacted me and asked if I could send her an autographed picture. I have never, in 40 plus years, I've never turned down a signature or a returning email or a letter or a note ever to anybody. But it's affected so many people, and now we have people that grew up with the show that are turning their kids onto it, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old kids, and they all love it. So it had a much bigger impact than any of us thought it would.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? So certain things stick with people for so long.
Yeah.
Much like the Incredible Hulk, it's still got this enduring appeal. I wouldn't be talking to you now if it wasn't for that,
That's true, and I just saw Lou at this signing thing, and he's doing well.
He is.
And it looks the same, not green, of course, but looks the same as he did. Stays in great shape. He was a wonderful guy. Bill Bixby was one of the nicest guys. One of the nicest things, we're switching direction now and going to Hulk.
Okay, we can do that. Just you're wearing
It's your show. I'm just asking.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I was just going to quickly sort of give just a little bit of just a little bit about ISIS from what I know of it. I'm new to it too. I don't remember it at the time. I think I may be a little bit too young at the time to switch on to that series. But I looked a little bit up about it. Your co-star was Joanna Cameron as Isis, but she was like an alter ego character, a bit like Wonder Woman, where there was two characters. She was an everyday person. But could she was a science teacher, I believe, in the story.
Her name is Andrea.
Yeah, and then she could summon the powers of Isis when needed and turn into this goddess Isis to fight, certain things.
Right.
Yeah.
It was the medallion that she found doing an archaeological dig.
Yeah, and it was an amulet, wasn't it, that she had? Yeah.
An amulet.
Yeah. So for those of you who might not have seen it, check that out if it's on DVD or I'm sure it's around over here somewhere.
Probably on YouTube, DVD. You can probably find it everywhere.
I should imagine so. Yeah, But getting on to the Incredible Hulk, you of course guest starred in the series 2 opener, Married, which was like a two-parter, put together like a feature-length 90-minute film. Now, what did you want to say about that, Brad? And then we can go into other stories as we go along with it. But
about who?
About that story, the Married story, the Incredible Hulk. Where did you want to start with that?
Well, it was a wonderful thing to work on. It was a 6-week shoot, and to work with Bill, I grew up with Bill's wife, may she rest in peace, Brenda Benet.
Yeah.
And we were very good friends for many, many years, and then she married Bill. I never saw her after she married Bill because she got too busy. But he was just a wonderful guy. The nice thing about being an actor is you have the ability to see people that you really respect and admire and would like to work with someday, and then you get the opportunity to do it. I'd always admired Bill's work. I'd always admired Mary Hartley's work. And Lou Ferrigno did a great job, as Hulk. But I got to work mostly with Bill and Mariette Hartley.
Yeah.
And so for me, that was a treat. It was a real treat. I mean, he was one of the nicest guys I've ever known.
Yeah.
He was great. He was great. Great guy. A fun shoot, a lot of work, long hours. I tell my students, I have an acting studio in beautiful downtown Burbank, and I tell all my students, you never know how long you're going to be on a set. For the last 2 days of shooting, on Thursday morning, I had a 4 a.m. call.
Wow.
And I didn't get my first shot until 2 a.m. Friday morning.
Wow.
So you never know. You always have to be prepared.
Yeah.
You always have to know what you're doing. You always have to know your words. And then you may sit around for 12 or 14 hours waiting to get your shot.
Yeah.
But it was a wonderful experience. And then we were all shocked as heck when I think it was in the UK where they turned it into a feature film first.
Yes. Yeah.
Because what happens when they do that, you get a paycheck for like 3 times the amount of what you were paid to do the shoot. and none of us knew that.
Yeah.
And then in the mail you get this surprise check and you go, what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And then there's a note with it, there's a coding and a note that tells you that they turned it into a feature film and blah, 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 blah. It's a very happy day. Yeah, happy day.
It actually was actually shown over here, Brian, as that 2-hour movie you mentioned, in my local cinema when I was a kid over here.
Oh, really?
But they I did see it. I think I did see it. But they renamed it for to make it. They wanted to make it look flashy, and they called it Bride of the Incredible Hulk.
Right.
But it was the same story, Married. But yeah.
So it was a ball to work on that show. Good people. Kenneth Johnson, who was the executive producer and writer, was great guy. I think he's still around in LA somewhere. I don't know if he's still working or not, but he was the guy who hired me. And on the DVD set, or on the DVD episode, he mentions that I was one of the only people that really looked frightened to death when Banner turned into the Hulk.
Yeah.
And then the episode was fun to do because I got to do a lot of work with Lou.
Yes.
And I stupidly did all my own stunt work because I was young and stupid at the time. I wouldn't do it now, I'm too old. But, so I did all my stunts with him. And then if you recall in the episode, he reaches over, grabs my hair, and I'm wearing a toupee, and it comes off, and we have this very fun comic moment.
Yes, you got that really bad bald cap on.
Right. Yeah. And then he pushes me across the bedroom into the bathroom, and I fell into a hamper. Yeah.
I know you were sort of like you were kind of playing like a sort of 70s type sort of gigolo, weren't you? Type character,
Right,
I think.
right.
You know, with the medallion hanging down and you know all that. You know,
open shirt,
shirt,
long hair.
Yeah. That must have been quite fun. Yeah.
In Italian, what they call a schiavosa.
Yeah. Where was most of that shot, by the way, Brian?
Well, let's see. We shot some of it in Paradise Cove, which is north of Malibu, and then the rest we shot at the studio on the lot.
Universal. Yeah.
Yeah. All the driving stuff was shot along the coast from Paradise Cove down to Santa Monica, and then the rest of the remainder of the stuff was shot on the lot. I think they had one location in a house, maybe David Banner's house, wherever that was. I'm not sure.
Yeah, there was some exterior. There was some exteriors with a house actually on the beach there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Paradise Cove.
Yeah. There was one really funny scene. Well, all the scenes were quite humorous, you know, that you were in. But there was one bit when the Hulk, he's turned into the Hulk in the house, in the penthouse, and you've got an upstairs balcony bit, you know, where the girls are, you know,
Right.
drinking champagne and having a good time and stuff. And Lou is supposed to smash the staircase down or something, and the whole upper deck was meant to collapse.
Right.
Do you remember that it took a bit longer than it should have done to collapse?
The set builders. That's why we shot so long and so late.
Yeah.
They built it so well it wouldn't come down. And you know, I'm hanging there by my fingers
Yeah.
as it's collapsing. And I just hung there, I don't know for how long. Finally, he said, okay, pull Brian out, let's get this thing rigged and do it again. No, it wouldn't come down. That's how good those set guys are.
They were saying that.
The actors and the bricks on the set
Yeah.
are the most important people, you know, and the DP. They're just great.
Yeah. I heard that people were pulling on it, jumping on it, and doing everything they could, and it just wouldn't. It took forever
They
to.
had ropes tied to the post at the bottom.
Yeah.
We had guys pulling on the rope so it would release and drop, but it wouldn't. It just wouldn't. It would have withstood Katrina, I think. It would have it'd still been standing in New Orleans after the hurricane. Yeah, it was a monster. It was a huge set too.
It was. Yeah. It was.
It was a big set. Yeah.
Yeah, it was funny listening to that. How long it, you know, I think they got through like a few cans of film just trying to, because they kept running out of film as it was collapsing. You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it took forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it really did.
But you there was a couple other things you appeared in as well, Brian. Subsequently, one in particular actually. And that was a much smaller role than the Hulk, but you were. I was just interested because I've never spoken to anyone who's been in this series, and I loved it as a kid. Was Morecambe Mindy?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and
that was a ball. To work with Robin Williams was a huge treat. I've got to work with some really fabulous actors. I've worked with Lee J. Cobb, Robin Williams, Lucille Ball, Edmund O'Brien, Ruth Warwick. Now, young kids aren't going to know any of those names, but anybody that knows the film business certainly will.
Yeah.
And then one of the best guys I've ever worked with, I guest starred on an episode of Fall Guy with
Lee Majors. Lee Majors, yeah.
And he was one of the best stars I've ever worked with in my life. He was so gracious and giving and easy to work with. So I've had a real good run. I can't complain. I've never had to have a job in my life.
Yeah.
I started acting when I was 5. That's all I've ever done.
Yeah.
Until I opened my acting studio in 1993. And I can say very happily and proudly that with the grace of God and my help of my lovely wife, we have one of the best acting studios in the country. And we have for almost 30 years. And we have actors, I'm not going to name drop because I don't do that. But we have actors that we train starring on hit shows, doing guest star roles or co-star roles. Then we have brand new people that are just trying to learn the trade and want to pursue it.
Yeah.
I don't know, I think they're crazy. After doing it for 70 years almost, this business is so hard.
It is.
So difficult to work in and stay positive and everything else, It really is. And I love the business. It's all I've ever done. I'm a singer, a dancer, an actor, and a musician. At one point, I belonged to 10 different unions because they all represent a different area of the industry.
Yeah.
One for musicians, Local 47, and you have one for the American Guild of Variety Artists, which is for people that work in Vegas, and you have AGMA, the American Guild of Musical Artists, which is opera and lyric opera. Then you have Equity. Then you used to have SAG and AFTRA.
SAG, that's it. Yeah.
So it's SAG AFTRA. But I mean, if you're going to work in all those arenas, which I did, then and the first feature film I ever did, I got to work. It was Anne Margaret's first film, and I got to work with her, Tita Rivera, Dick Van Dyke, Paul Lynde, Bye Bye Birdie. And it was a huge success and a huge amount of fun. That was my first feature I ever worked in. But I go back and back and forth to black and white TV. I did the Donna Reed show with Donna Reed and Paul Peterson, who I still stay in touch with. So it's a small world, but a big industry.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. So this acting school you have now, Brian, is it a scholarship that you do to go to scholarship level or anything like that, or it's just literally like the first step and then they move on and do what they need to do?
No, I've had actors that have been studying with me I have one that's been with me since 1999, and we started in Kansas City and St. Louis, and moved back to LA, where I'm from, 4 years ago. And I turned the studio in Kansas City over to someone else, and he's still running it. And then we have the studio here in Burbank, as I said. And it's all film. Everything we do is on camera. And we're one of the only studios in LA. It's hard to believe this, but one of the only studios in LA that actually shoots every class.
Yeah.
And we have playback in every class.
Ah,
and
right.
my mentor was Charles Harris Conrad, who was the best acting coach in LA for probably 30 or 40 years. And he was not only my coach for 12 years, but my friend and mentor for 40. And Charles used to say, learning to act for the camera without a camera is like learning to ride a horse without a horse.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't do it.
It's the best way is having it there so you know how to react to it, react off it.
Yeah, and forget that it's there.
I forget it's there, yeah, but it's important that it is there. It's still, at the same time.
And we have all state-of-the-art equipment. We just bought all brand new equipment. It's incredible. Everything we shoot looks shot 4K, 1080p at 24 frames a second, so it all looks just like film. So we have a good group of people that are very committed to their craft. And then that's what we do now. I did do a guest star thing a couple of months ago. I can't tell you what it is because it's a new show.
Right.
But I got to play a serial killer murderer, and it was fun. It was, when I was young and pretty, I couldn't get roles like that. Now, I'm old, have a gray beard, and a little belly, and so now I can do roles like that. And those are the fun roles.
Oh yeah, for an actor, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Oh yeah.
It's always good to play the bad guy, you know. Yeah, the actors love playing bad, you know, the dark side of things, you know.
With Jack Klugman on this show, I got to play an arsonist, and I got to burn down buildings and light fires and do all kinds of stuff. And then when I guest starred on, here's an interesting, on Knight Rider I did twice. The second time I did it, do you know who the actor Albert Salmi was?
No, I don't, Brian, no. Not offhand.
Check him out. Check him out on IMDb.
Right.
He's probably in 400 films. And he was a great guy. Another guy that I always really liked, and got to work with him. And he was wonderful. He was just wonderful. He got sick of the business and moved to Idaho. He'd been doing it so long. He just said, screw it. I'm not going to do that anymore.
Yeah.
But see, there's an example of someone I always admired and wanted to work with, and I did. David Huddleston is another one. You know what's interesting in my career? I've done 2 of the most successful shows in the world. The highest rated Charlie's Angels show with the original girl.
Charlie's Angels, yeah. That's another one, yeah.
Angels in Chains. Right.
Yeah.
And I played Deputy Dan, and that's where I got to work with David Huddleston. And that's like, people have made plays about it. You know, it's been done as a production. In different cities. And then the Hulk, of course, which was a great shoot. And then, as we talked, they turned it into a feature film, which was even more fun.
Oh, yeah. You got an extra check.
Yeah.
That's always fun, yeah.
Yeah.
But I just want to ask you, just go back to the Hulk briefly, Brian, before we sort of sew this up, as it were. I just wanted. I read, of course, and heard on the commentary track that you saw on the DVD that Marriott Hartley won the Emmy for that part. I wondered what you thought. You actually thought of Marriott as an actress when working with her.
I thought she was fabulous. She never did anything the same. All the roles she did were different, and a wonderful actor. Yeah, no, I loved working with her. She was great. Again, I always enjoyed her work, and when I got to see who was on the call sheet, I thought, oh boy, this is going to be fun. You know.
Had you worked with her previously, or was that the first time?
I'm sorry?
Had you worked with her before?
No, that was the first time.
The first time, yeah.
Same with Bill. I'd never worked with Bill.
And how did you find Bill?
Fabulous.
Yeah.
Warm, friendly, very giving on the set. No attitude, no star thing.
Yeah.
Complex or anything. You find, I think, Frank, that the majority of big stars are very giving, very sharing, very friendly. You know, they're not full of themselves.
No.
They're not. They're too giving to be full of themselves.
Yeah, which is great, of course.
Yeah.
You know, but there's just the odd one that's can be a bit of an arsehole, you know. But
yeah.
That's the way of the world, I guess. That's with any profession, isn't it? You know.
Oh, absolutely.
You know.
Sure.
But Brian, I'm really pleased that you answered my call to do this. And it's been a pleasure speaking to you about some of the things you've done, and best of luck as always with your acting school. It looks like it's going from strength to strength, which is great.
Yeah.
And thanks for sharing your memories with me.
All right. Have a beautiful night.
Thank you. I hope you guys enjoyed it too when you're listening to it. Thank you.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.